Four of the most storied college football programs were forever altered in the matter of hours when the news break that Lincoln Riley is headed for USC from Oklahoma, and the news that Brian Kelly will be joining LSU and leaving behind Notre Dame. Matt, I have a simple question for you. Which of these four schools is the most attractive destination?
I mean, honestly, Scott, I think it's LSU for a few different reasons. One, just the overall fact that you're in the SEC, you're at a storied program like LSU gives you such a leg up as far as recruiting goes. And even in a down year, you saw LSU almost beat Alabama, have some really good games. And then just specifically with this team and with this program right now, recruiting class of 2020, recruiting class of 2021, both top 5 in the nation. So you have a great foundation of players that are still there that will probably still want to play for Brian Kelly. And if that move is anything like what we've seen already with Lincoln Riley, expect some Notre Dame guys to head there, maybe some other transfers. And with all of that, and with Kelly being a defensive guy, I think that he is built to have some success in the SEC if he can live up to, the hype. And not only that, but when you think about it, and we'll talk about this when you talk about Riley, you might not be as dominant overall with LSU because you'll have to go up against a Georgia, Alabama, Florida, all these great SEC teams. But I think you overall have a better chance of building a team like Ed Orgeron did, that's going to win a national title. And so I think that's part of it as well, is it's not just you're making it to a college football playoff, you have a chance to win a title.
No doubt. That makes sense. And I think, those kind of top 5 incoming recruiting classes for LSU, they're going to take some hits because Ed Orgeron and Brian Kelly are pretty kind of, on opposite ends of the spectrum.
They are.
When you're talking about recruiters and obviously, head coaches as well. And that's why USC is obviously the most attractive spot for me. First and foremost, it's Cali, it's La, it's LA, and who doesn't want to be in that atmosphere? And, kind of tied into that, USC is going to be able to run the West in terms of recruiting, especially with the type of recruiter that Lincoln Riley is. He is, pretty much a quarterback whisperer, with his time with, Kyler, and even, here recently with Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler, although that didn't end too well. But that's right up USC's alley when you look at, past great Trojan quarterbacks, Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, Barkley, Mark Sanchez. None of those guys really had great pro careers aside from Palmer, but they're legit USC legends.
Oh, they're good college quarterbacks.
100%. And also, too, they're going to be in the Pac-12, which is completely wide open. We saw Oregon have a great chance throughout most of the season to make the college football playoff before they slipped up, here recently. That's going to be all USC. If you think about it, like I said, they have a chance to run the West. They have a chance to run the Pac-12. And I think from day one, Lincoln Riley with, the recruiting classes he's going to be able to bring in, they're going to have a good chance to win the Pac-12 year one, possibly make a college football playoff, year one. So USC is the destination. But let's transition, kind of talking about these other two schools kind of left in the wind, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. Which of those two programs do you see kind of bouncing back quicker?
Well, I think it's Notre Dame. I mean, first off, we have to wait, like I said earlier, you have to wait and see how many from the recruiting class of 2022 decide to stay, because that was a top 5 recruiting class for Notre Dame.
Sure.
If enough of those guys stay, that's going to be a great group of freshmen coming in. And I think that if you look at Oklahoma, they almost got the equivalent of a death penalty. When Lincoln Riley left, he took everything. I mean, he basically, if it wasn't bolted down to the floor, it's going with Lincoln Riley out.
He's leaving the cupboard pretty dry.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Bob Stoops is not a fan of him right now, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at all of that, you have to assume that Oklahoma heading into the SEC is just not going to look pretty. It's really going to all depend on who they end up hiring.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is that we talked about this. The Notre Dame kind of runs the Midwest recruiting world, even with Ohio State, even with Michigan, all these great Big Ten teams. Notre Dame 100%. Always is in the mix for the great Midwest players, and I expect that to continue even if Kelly isn't there.
I completely agree. Notre Dame kind of is a program that almost runs itself, no matter who's there. Obviously Brian Kelly is one of the greatest coaches, of this era when it comes to college football. But, I'm from Chicago. You mentioned I'm from Chicago, and Notre Dame is the biggest college football, draw, the college football program in that area. And obviously, as you mentioned, they get kind of the top recruits year in, year out from the Midwest. I don't see that changing. And, on the Oklahoma side, being the new guy in the SEC is not something I would wish on anybody.
Right.
Nick Saban, Georgia, even Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M with the recruiting classes he's going to be bringing in the next 4 years. I think they're going to, try to really stick it to Oklahoma, and try to prove a point that this is, you're not in the Big 12 no more. And I think that's going to be an issue. I think, honestly, Oklahoma is going to struggle for a couple of years here, as they, kind of get used to, SEC football. And, doing it with a new coach isn't great either.
The only positive is that they have Texas to fall back on, because I don't think Texas is going to do much better.
It's not going to be great. No. But that's going to do it for us here after a busy week in college football. For Scott Proctor and Matt Morris, we'll catch you next time.